They sent an ultimatum, not a negotiator. Admiral Eva Rostova watched the ultimatum crawl across the main screen of the fleet carrier Tallyman. Each character of the Xyloxy demand was a glyph of cold geometric certainty, a declaration of power that left no room for reply. Beside her, the fleet mind Lex rendered the alien script into stark Federation standard surrender, all civilian convoy vessels for purity inspection. Non-compliance will be met with systemic erasure. You have 1 standard hour. A countdown timer appeared beneath the text, its red numerals already bleeding away the seconds. 58. The demand was an extinction event disguised as bureaucracy, aimed squarely at the 70,000 souls aboard the 12 massive freighters huddled behind her thin escort fleet. Her fleet was a whisper in the dark, composed of the Tallyman 2 skirmish-class cruisers and a half-dozen cutters. They were shepherds, not warriors, tasked with guiding the civilian convoy through the Seraphim Drift. But now blocking their path was the Xyloxy Overphalanx Unbending Blade, a warship that outmassed her entire command by a factor of 10. Its weapon ports shimmered with latent energy, a promise of overwhelming force held in chilling reserve. The console in front of Rostova reflected the scene, its cool light etching lines of strain onto her face. Communications Rostova set her voice a low anchor in the tense quiet of the bridge. Open a channel. Standard diplomatic greeting. Inform them we are a humanitarian escort, and their inspection is not required. Officer Reyes shook his head, his fingers tracing lines of dead code on his console. No channel, Admiral. They're broadcasting only. It's a doctrinal statement, not a conversation. They believed dialogue was a weakness. They're not listening. Lex stated, its synthesized voice calm and devoid of emotion. The AI's avatar, a simple pulsating lattice of blue light, hovered beside the command throne. Probability analysis of their ultimatum doctrine suggests a 98% chance they will adhere to their stated timeline. Compliance is the only path that guarantees 0 loss of life. The logic was flawless, sterile, and utterly unacceptable. A low hum vibrated through the deck plates, the sound of the ship's primary systems holding at full alert. That's not a path, Lex Rostova countered, her gaze fixed on the enemy ship. It's a collar, and this fleet does not wear them. Aboard the freighter Stellar Dawn, a teacher named Alara tried to distract the children in her care. They were gathered in the ship's primary biodome, a cavernous space filled with recycled air that smelled of rich soil and blooming Terran flowers. She pointed to a holographic monarch butterfly fluttering near the dome's ceiling. But the children weren't looking. Their eyes were fixed on the viewport, where the monstrous shape of the Xyloxy warship eclipsed the stars. A little boy clutched her tunic. "Are the scary men going to make us leave?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Alara pulled him close, forcing a smile. "The fleet is here," she said softly. "They keep us safe." Back on the Tallyman tactical officer, Kalen brought up the fleet's readiness status. "Admiral, our weapon-grade particle beams are at full charge, but they'll barely scratch the Unbending Blade's kinetic shielding. Our strength is in electronic warfare and precision strikes. We can't win a direct fight." The scent of ozone from the overworked tactical console was sharp in the air. "We aren't here to win a fight," Rostova corrected him, her mind racing. "We're here to teach a lesson. What is their formation, Kalen?" "A standard picket line. Admiral, rigid, no deviations. They're positioned to intercept any freighter that breaks formation. A plan built on arrogance has a hole in its heart." "Their doctrine demands it," Lex added. "Predictability is a component of their displayed strength. Any deviation would imply a lack of resolve." Rostova's lips thinned into a hard line. Predictability. Rigidity. These were not strengths. They were vulnerabilities, waiting for a lever. Lex, run a full sensor scan on the convoy. Focus on the freighter Argent. I need to know the power output of her primary cargo stabilizers. A flicker of confusion crossed Kalen's face, but he relayed the order without question. The countdown clock on the main screen ticked past 52 minutes. The response came a moment later. The Argent stabilizers are emitting an unusual energy signature, Admiral Reyes reported from his station. It's well outside normal operating parameters. It's deliberate, Rostova said, a flicker of grim satisfaction in her eyes. This was the first piece of the puzzle. I authorized a series of non-standard upgrades before we left port. Get me the captain of the Argent. Their ultimatum was a sword. Hers would be a mirror. A few tense seconds passed before a harried face appeared on a secondary screen. Admiral, we're holding steady, but my crew is terrified. Your crew is about to become instrumental, Captain Rostova said, her voice radiating a confidence she didn't fully feel. On my mark, I need you to vent plasma from your port nacelle. Make it look like a contained but critical engine failure. Can you do that? The captain's eyes widened, but he nodded. We can. Good. Tell your people to brace. She cut the connection. Kalen, prepare decoy swarm Delta. I want every drone mimicking the Argent's new heat signature. Flood the space between us and the convoy. The air seemed to crackle with renewed energy, the low hum of the ship shifting to a higher, more active pitch. Admiral Lex interjected its lattice, glowing a cautionary amber. This course of action increases the probability of a violent response by 43%. The Xyloxy doctrine interprets deception as dishonorable aggression. Their honor is not my concern, Rostova shot back. Their actions are. Execute. A jolt ran through the deck as the decoy tubes fired. On the main screen, a cloud of 1,000 tiny drones erupted from the tallyman, each one a ghost in the machine. Simultaneously, the freighter Argent vented a brilliant plume of superheated plasma, a silent scream of light in the vacuum. The Xyloxy fleet held its position, but Rostova could see their targeting sensors twitching on the tactical display, confused by the sudden storm of identical heat signatures. They had expected a straight line, a simple equation. She was giving them chaos. The countdown hit 45 minutes. A thin beam of energy precise as a surgeon's scalpel lanced out from the unbending blade. It struck the Argent's wounded nacelle, not with destructive force, but with a disabling ion charge. The freighter's lights flickered, and its momentum began to bleed away. A cost had been exacted. A warning had been sent. A young ensign at navigation gasped, his knuckles white on his console. They've taken the bait, Kalen murmured, his eyes wide. They've done exactly what their doctrine demanded, Rostova corrected. They punished the perceived weakness. Now, let's show them our strength. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper, yet it carried across the entire bridge. All convoy ships, on my mark, activate the lattice. You cannot break what is built to reflect. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hulls of the 12 civilian freighters shimmered. From hidden emitters, a web of interlocking energy fields sprang into existence, forming a vast semi-translucent wall between the convoy and the Xyloxy. It wasn't a shield designed to absorb impact, but a massive, perfectly angled mirror array. The strange energy readings Lex had detected were now explained. The convoy was not a herd of sheep. It was a carefully arranged component of a much larger weapon. The Xyloxy responded instantly. Believing their authority had been challenged, a second more powerful beam shot from their capital ship. It struck the energy lattice and split into 1,000 glittering shards of light. The beam meant to cripple another freighter was instead scattered harmlessly into the void. The bridge of the Tallyman was silent for a heartbeat, the only sound the soft hiss of the life support systems. Reyes let out a slow breath. Message received, I think. It was not a message Lex corrected its avatar returning to a cool blue. It was a mathematical statement. Force applied to this angle results in force redirected. They will now recalculate. This fleet teaches by numbers and remembers by ledgers, never by collars. Rostova watched the enemy vessel looking for any sign of deviation, any change in posture. The Xyloxy did not recalculate. Their doctrine did not allow for it. The human response was an anomaly, an error in the equation of power they understood. And their doctrine had a simple, brutal solution for errors. Their answer was escalation. Weapon ports that had been dormant now glowed with crimson intensity. Hatches slid open along the unbending blade's dorsal spine, revealing batteries of kinetic torpedoes. The lattice could redirect energy, but it offered no defense against physical projectiles. The tactical display updated with a swarm of new threat indicators, each one a death sentence for a freighter. The countdown timer read 38 minutes, but time was no longer the primary threat. The torpedoes are unguided. Admiral Kalin reported, his voice tight. Dumbfire. They're just saturating the area, betting they'll hit something vital. Point defense cannons on the cruisers are engaging, but the field is too dense. They are not trying to win. Rostova realized a cold clarity settling over her. They are trying to prove their ultimatum is non-negotiable, even if it costs them ammunition and tactical advantage. They are slaves to their own threat. This was the core of their weakness, the fatal flaw in their logic. They had to follow through, no matter the cost. A plan is a promise you make to the future. Lex, I need a new projection. The Xyloxy commander is committed. He will not deviate. Give me the path of least resistance for my convoy, not through his fleet, but around it. Use the system's primary gravity well as a slingshot. The AI's lattice pulsed. Plotting the maneuver will place the convoy in extreme proximity to the system's star. Heat shielding on the civilian vessels is rated for only 90 seconds of such exposure. Get it done in 80, Rostova ordered. Reyes broadcast to the convoy. Full burn on my mark. Tell them to trust the vector. She turned to Kalin. I need you to do something for me. Those decoys are still out there. Reprogram them. I don't want them to mimic the convoy's heat signature anymore. A grim smile touched her lips. I want them to mimic ours. Inside the Stellar Dawn's biodome, the ship suddenly lurched, the deck tilting violently. The holographic butterfly vanished as emergency power rerouted to the engines. Ilara gathered the children, herding them toward the relative safety of the central support column as the ship's internal gravity fluctuated. Red emergency lighting bathed the dome in a hellish glow. Over the intercom, the captain's strained voice was a beacon of calm in the chaos. All hands brace for high G maneuver. Trust the Tallyman. Trust the Admiral. A reckoning is a debt coming due. On the tactical screen, the convoy ships began their desperate, suicidal run toward the blazing sun. At the same moment, the Tallyman and its two cruiser escorts turned and burned hard in the opposite direction directly toward the Xyloxy fleet. And all around them, 1,000 decoy drones suddenly flared to life, their energy signatures perfectly matching those of the human warships. The Xyloxy sensors were instantly flooded with false targets, a ghost fleet charging headlong into their guns. The Xyloxy commander, locked into his doctrine, made the only choice he could. He ignored the fleeing convoy. Their destruction was already assured by the torpedo swarm, and focused his primary weapons on the immediate dishonorable threat. Massive particle beams thick as star scraper towers tore through the decoy cloud. The void filled with silent blossoming fireballs as the drones were vaporized. It was a spectacular and utterly meaningless display of force. "He's firing on ghosts," Kalen said, a note of disbelief in his voice. The heat from the nearby star was already causing sweat to bead on his brow, even with the bridge's climate controls working overtime. "He is firing on his own pride," Rostova answered. Her eyes locked on the escaping convoy. The freighters were now deep into their gravitational slingshot, skimming the star's chromosphere. Heat alarms began to blare across the bridge. Status on the convoy. Lex. 75 seconds of exposure. Hull temperature on the stellar dawn is approaching critical levels. Another 15 seconds, and their shielding will fail. Hold the line. The ship shuddered as a stray torpedo one that had missed the convoy slammed into the tallyman's aft quarter. The lights flickered, and a cascade of orange damage icons lit up a secondary display. "Aft sensor array is offline," Kalen reported through gritted teeth. "Minor hull breach on deck 7, but it's contained. We're hurt, but we're alive." Another cost paid another entry in the ledger. Rostova barely glanced at the damage report. Her focus was absolute. Convoy status. 82 seconds. Lex stated, "They are clearing the gravity well. Vectors are green. They are pulling away." A collective sigh of relief washed over the bridge. They had done it. They had broken the siege. But the unbending blade was now turning its main weapons, reorienting on the true targets. The decoys were gone. The deception was over. And the Xyloxi were enraged. The countdown timer ignored for long minutes now read 12:03. The ultimatum was still in effect. Admiral Reyes said, his voice grim. "New broadcast from the Xyloxi. It's public. They're beaming it system-wide and back to their own homeworld." On the main screen, the cold geometric script appeared again. "The dishonorable Terran fleet has sacrificed its civilians to the fire of a star to cover their own cowardice. Their deception is recorded. The ledger demands a balancing. All remaining Terran military vessels will be atomized. The doctrine is absolute." Their words were meant to be a sentence. Rostova watched the message, a cold fury building within her. They were trying to rewrite the narrative to paint their own inflexibility as a human atrocity. They were using the public record as a weapon, twisting the truth to justify what was about to happen. Her crew had just pulled off a miracle, and the Xyloxi were calling them cowards who had abandoned their people. "They're not just trying to kill us." "Lex," she said softly. The hum of the ship's strained engines, a low thrum beneath her feet. "They're trying to erase our truth. This is a known component of their information warfare doctrine," the AI replied. "Historical revisionism serves to reinforce the infallibility of the ultimatum structure. They are broadcasting what they need to be true." "Then we will show them the truth," Rostova declared. Her arc of restraint was burned away by the star's fire and the enemy's lies. The time for clever lessons was past. Now was the time for a final righteous decision. She brought up a new schematic on her command console, one that showed the system not as a collection of planets and ships, but as a web of gravitational forces and energy corridors. She would turn their kill box inside out. "Kalen, what is the unbending blade's current energy state?" After that barrage on the decoys, the tactical officer's fingers flew across his console. Their primary weapon capacitors are at less than 60%. They expended significant energy on nothing. Their engines are running hot from the turn. They're powerful, but they're not efficient. The glare from his screen illuminated a sudden dawning understanding in his eyes. "Lex, you've been running psychological models on their commander. His doctrine has been challenged, his authority questioned. He is now angry and overconfident. He believes the convoy is gone, and we are crippled. Will he pursue us if we present a clear vector of retreat? Probability is 99.9%, the AI confirmed instantly. His doctrine demands he demonstrate superiority by pursuing and destroying a fleeing enemy. Good. Rostova's voice was ice. Reyes, open a channel to the convoy. Tell them to find a nice, safe orbit behind the system's gas giant and wait for our signal. Their part in this is over. She then turned her gaze back to the tactical display, where the massive Xyloxy warship was beginning its ponderous advance. Their pride would become their prison. Helm lay in a course. Take us toward the asteroid field in the outer system. Make it look like a desperate run. She traced a line on the holographic map, a path that led through a narrow, seemingly clear corridor within the dense field of rock and ice. It looked like the only viable escape route. That corridor is a fatal funnel, Admiral Kalen warned. They'll follow us in and tear us apart. The funnel isn't for us, Rostova said. Her eyes met his. It's for them. She initiated a command sequence, one she had drilled for months in simulations, but had never prayed she would have to use. It was a strategy of last resort, a plan so audacious it bordered on insane. It wasn't about mirrors or decoys anymore. This part of the plan had teeth. Fleet Mind Lex. She said, her voice formal. You have command authorization. Deploy the anchors. The AI's lattice pulsed once, a brilliant solid white. Authorization accepted. Deploying anchors. The ledger will be balanced. A deep, resonant thrum echoed through the tallyman, a vibration that felt less like a machine and more like the awakening of a sleeping giant. On the tactical display, new icons flared to life within the asteroid field, previously hidden and dormant. They weren't weapons. They were something far more dangerous. They were gravity projectors. They came to enforce a law. They would leave as a warning. The trap was set. The Xyloxy ship, consumed by its own righteous doctrine, accelerated into the chase, its engines leaving incandescent trails in the darkness. It followed the human ships into the corridor, precisely as Rostova and Lex had predicted. The hunter was entering the snare, unaware that the ground beneath its feet was about to vanish. The distance closed. The jaws of the trap began to swing shut. Rostova watched the enemy vessel grow on the main screen. The moment of truth was approaching a point of no return, forged in the heart of a star, and the unbending will of two opposing philosophies. Her hand rested on the activation key. Her fleet had taught. Her fleet had endured. Now her fleet would demonstrate the true cost of an ultimatum delivered to the wrong people. She drew a steadying breath, the aired hasting of recycled oxygen and imminent conflict. The glare of the red alert strobes painted the bridge in rhythmic waves of crimson and shadow. Her orders had been given. The pieces were in motion. All that was left was to spring the trap and let the universe render its judgment. The account was about to be settled. The unbending blade plunged into the corridor, a predator confident in its pursuit. On the tallyman's main screen, its icon burned a malevolent red, closing the distance with arrogant speed. The human vessels appeared to be fleeing in a panic, their energy signatures bleeding desperation. The illusion was perfect, a carefully crafted invitation to a reckoning. Kalen's hands were steady on his console, but a single drop of sweat traced a path down his temple. The air on the bridge was thick with the scent of hot metal and anticipation. They've taken the bait. Admiral Kalen confirmed, his voice barely a whisper. They are fully within the designated kill box. All 3 of our escort ships are clear of the projected perimeter. Rostova's gaze was fixed on the tactical display, her expression unreadable. She saw not ships, but variables, in an equation of her own design. The Xyloxi were a known quantity, their doctrine a constant. Her fleet was the catalyst for change. Hold your course helm. Let him feel the chase. Let his certainty peak. She wanted the Xyloxi commander to savor his impending victory, to believe utterly in his own superiority. Pride was the fulcrum upon which she would break him. They thought it was a corridor. It was a cage. Anchor 1 activate. Lex announced its voice, the epitome of calm. A deep subharmonic groan resonated through the Tallyman's hull, a vibration felt more in the bones than in the ears. On the tactical display, a single gravity projector flared to life. It was not a violent explosion of energy, but a silent, inexorable warping of space-time itself. A nearby asteroid the size of a small moon shuddered and began to drift, pulled from its centuries-old orbit. It moved with unnatural slowness, a geological titan awakened from its slumber. The Xyloxi commander must have seen it on his own sensors, a deviation that his doctrine could not explain. His ship's velocity did not waver. An anomaly could be ignored. An ultimatum could not. He continued his charge, his forward cannons beginning to glow as they charged for a killing blow. The countdown timer on Rostova's screen, a relic of a battle already won. And lost, ticked below 3 minutes. Anchors 2 and 3, activate. Rostova commanded, her voice cutting through the tension. 2 more projectors ignited their combined gravitational influence, creating a tidal wave in the void. Asteroids were pulled from the field's dense heart, a cascade of rock and ice tumbling inward. The clear corridor, the safe passage vanished. In its place, a churning, chaotic wall of debris materialized directly in the path of the charging, unbending blade. The trap had not just been sprung, it had been built from the fabric of the system itself. A debt is a promise of pain. The Xyloxi ship, with its immense mass and velocity, could not turn in time. Its commander had 2 choices: a full ruinous emergency stop, or plow ahead and trust in his shields. He chose the latter. His doctrine demanded forward momentum. The first impact was a silent, brilliant flash on the main screen. A city block-sized chunk of nickel iron slammed into the unbending blade's forward kinetic shielding. The barrier flared, absorbing the blow, but the massive warship visibly shuddered from the force. Then came the second impact, and the third. The corridor had become a gauntlet. The hunter was now the hunted not by a fleet, but by physics. His forward shields are down by 20%. Kalen reported, his voice filled with a kind of awed horror. He's diverting auxiliary power to compensate, but the impacts are too frequent. He's trapped in a gravity tide. He is trapped in his own doctrine, Rostova corrected. His refusal to deviate is now his only tactical option. Lex, bring the rest of the anchors online. Slowly. I don't want to crush him. I want to contain him. They built their walls of pride. We built ours of physics. The remaining gravity projectors activated in a rolling sequence their interlocking fields, weaving a complex web of gravitational eddies and currents. The asteroid field became a living thing, a celestial beast of Rostova's own creation. The unbending blade was caught in the center, battered and besieged. Its powerful engines fired in frantic, useless bursts, trying to navigate a maze that was actively reconfiguring itself second by second. The console beside Rostova sparked a cascade of yellow warnings, signaling the immense power drain from the projectors. The ship's lights dimmed for a moment before emergency systems compensated. Admiral, we can't maintain this field indefinitely, Kalen warned. The projectors are running at 150% of their rated capacity. We're burning through our fuel reserves at an alarming rate. This was the price of turning the tables so completely. We won't have to, Rostova said. Reyes, get me a system-wide channel. Use the same public frequency they did. Patch our tactical display through the broadcast. Let the entire system and their homeworld see this. She stood from her command throne, the deck vibrating with the strain of the gravity field. Let them see the failure of the absolute. A moment later, her voice, calm and clear, echoed across the system. It was not the voice of a warrior, but of a teacher delivering a final, unavoidable lesson. This is Admiral Eva Rostova of the Terran Federation fleet carrier Tallyman, to the commander of the Xyloxy vessel, Unbending Blade. Your ultimatum has expired. So has your authority. Their doctrine was a hammer, and every problem was a nail. On the public broadcast, the tactical feed showed the Xyloxy warship, its shields flickering under a relentless barrage of rock and ice. Beside it, Lex rendered a simple, stark data stream, the Xyloxy's wasted energy on the decoy fleet, the safe trajectory of the civilian convoy, now resting peacefully in the shadow of the gas giant, and the precise damning mathematics of the gravity trap. There was no commentary, no propaganda. There was only the data, the truth. You came to our space with a demand, backed by the threat of annihilation. Rostova's voice continued a cool counterpoint to the chaotic scene. You believe this is strength. You are mistaken. The inability to negotiate the refusal to adapt is not strength. It is a fatal design flaw. You have demonstrated this flaw for all to see. The air on the bridge was still the crew watching the unfolding drama with rapt attention. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to teach you. Your doctrine of the ultimatum is a failure. It is a tactical liability and a moral disgrace. She paused, letting the words sink in, letting the images on the screen speak for themselves. The Unbending Blade suffered another heavy impact, and a section of its outer hull plating buckled, venting atmosphere into the void. I am now issuing our own terms, Rostova stated. You have 1 standard hour to broadcast on this same channel a full and public rescission of your ultimatum doctrine. Acknowledge its failure. Order your fleets present and future to stand down from this cowardly practice. Do this, and we will deactivate the gravity field and allow you to depart. Refuse, and we will simply leave you here in the prison you forced us to build for you. The ledger would be balanced one way or another. Aboard the Stellar Dawn, Ilara and the children watched the broadcast on the biodome's main screen. The fear that had gripped them for hours was gone, replaced by a profound, quiet awe. The little boy who had been so frightened now pointed at the screen. The scary ship is stuck, he said, not with malice, but with simple wonder. Ilara knelt beside him. It is, sweetheart, she whispered. Sometimes, being too stubborn to listen is its own kind of trap. The hour began to count down on the Tallyman screen, a new clock superimposed over the old one. The Xyloxy commander did not respond. No messages were sent. But his ship's actions spoke volumes. Its main particle cannons, those that were not damaged or blocked by debris, began to fire wildly. Beams of incandescent energy lashed out not at the human fleet, which remained at a safe distance, but at the asteroids themselves. He was trying to blast his way out to answer a lesson in physics with brute, indiscriminate force. His response is tactically irrational. Lex observed its lattice pulsing with the influx of data. He is destabilizing the asteroid field. The energy released from his weapon impacts is threatening to create a cascading chain reaction. This could permanently alter the orbital mechanics of the inner planets. He would rather shatter the system than admit he is wrong, Kalen murmured. shaking his head. This was the true cost of their doctrine, mutual destruction. Rostova's face hardened. She had offered a way out, a chance for them to learn, to grow, to change. She had shown them mercy, and they had spat it back in her face, choosing instead to burn the whole house down. Her arc from restraint to decisiveness was now complete. The righteous choice was now the only choice. His actions have made the decision for us, she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. He cannot be allowed to break this system out of spite. She turned to the AI. Lex, can you use the projectors to create a focused gravitational shear? I don't want to tear the ship apart. I want to force a systemic shutdown, pinpoint their primary reactor, and squeeze. The AI's lattice shifted to a deep, ominous red. The calculations are complex. The power required will be immense. It will likely burn out the core emitters on at least 2 of the projectors. The cost will be significant. The cost of inaction is higher. Rostova countered. Do it. Settle this account. Brace for the reckoning. All hands brace for extreme power redirection. Kalen called out across the bridge. The ship's lights dimmed dramatically, plunging the command center into a deep twilight, lit only by the glowing consoles. The hum of the life support systems faltered for a second, and the vibration in the deck intensified into a violent, shuddering groan. The Tallyman was pouring every ounce of its energy, every drop of its lifeblood, into this final decisive act. On the main screen, the gravity field warped. The chaotic storm of asteroids was suddenly stilled, held in place by an invisible hand. Then, 2 impossibly powerful focused beams of gravitational force, invisible, but for the way they distorted the starlight behind them, converged on the unbending blade. They did not strike the ship. They seized the space it occupied. The massive Xyloxy warship, a vessel designed to withstand the fury of stars, was held fast. The groan of stressed metal seemed to echo across the void. The ship's engine emissions flickered and died. Its weapon ports went dark. The desperate, angry energy that had poured from it was snuffed out in an instant. The great predator was now a corpse, inert and helpless. A single final burst of static erupted from its communication array, and then silence. Reactor shutdown confirmed. Lex stated, its voice steady, despite the monumental feat it had just performed. All primary systems on the unbending blade are offline. They are adrift. 2 of our projectors have suffered catastrophic core failure. They are offline permanently. The cost had been paid. The victory was secure. Their silence was the only surrender they knew how to give. The bridge of the Tallyman slowly returned to normal. The lights flickered back to full intensity, the hum of the ship's systems stabilizing. The remaining gravity projectors powered down their work done, releasing the now calm asteroid field back to its ancient silent dance. The battle was over. The crisis was averted. The ultimatum had been answered. Rostova ordered the fleet to reform, to gather its precious convoy from their safe haven and prepare for the journey home. She sent no further messages to the Xyloxy. There was nothing left to say. The lesson had been delivered. Before they left, Lex performed one final action. Using a narrow beam transmission, it sliced through the fragmented Xyloxy public networks and made a single, indelible entry in their great ledger of record. It uploaded the complete, unedited tactical data of the encounter, time-stamped and verified. It formally logged the failure of the unbending blade, citing doctrinal inflexibility leading to systemic incapacitation. Then, under the heading Resolution, it entered a single line: the ultimatum doctrine has been declared strategically and morally bankrupt. This precedent is now law. The account was settled not by their consent, but by the undeniable mathematics of their defeat. As the human fleet prepared to warp, Rostova stood on the observation deck, looking out at the star-dusted blackness. Kalen joined her, the tension finally gone from his shoulders. "We won, Admiral," he said softly. "We did more than that, Kalen," she replied, her eyes distant. "We held the line. We showed them that strength isn't about the threats you can make. It's about the choices you can offer." She had been tested, pushed from a place of merciful restraint to one of righteous, decisive action. And she had found her balance. She had not become the monster she opposed. The gravity projectors, their immense task completed, had cooled from their incandescent fury. Out in the silent void, their massive mirror arrays, once burning with contained power, now reflected the distant starlight with the dull, placid sheen of pewter. An ultimatum is not a declaration of strength. It is a confession of fear. It is the admission that you are too scared to listen, too brittle to adapt, too terrified of a future you cannot completely control. It is the weapon of a coward. We answered their fear not with fear of our own, but with a lesson written in the language of consequence. We showed them that a line held with courage is stronger than a wall built with threats, and that the heaviest debts are always paid by those who refuse to negotiate the price. The ledger is balanced,